Hello everyone, it is the build-up show. The Champions League is back. We are the champions of Europe. Our title defence begins against Napoli. Chris Pajak, we were dog shit there last season. Let's hope it's better this time
Pretty much
round.
the worst performance that I can remember. We couldn't seem to string a pass together.
Oh my God.
Obviously got beat. We weren't much better against them in pre-season, although we lost by more. They're a tough side to play against, to be honest with you, and I think it will be a very, very tough game. I'm going to skip ahead and say that Liverpool snobbed them this time.
Go ahead. Yeah, Ben, if Jurgen Klopp talks all the time about, like, don't look too far back, doesn't really revisit past games for this, but
You've got to,
probably
surely.
should, just to kind of go, lads,
Yeah.
no, don't even bother doing any of the work on shape. Just like, do not be as shit as this again, and you'll probably at least be a little bit better.
I think we would find it very difficult. It's one of we couldn't be that shit if we tried. I don't think we could physically be that bad. And you know, the pre-season game wasn't much better either, as you say. Look, it's a big opportunity to make a big statement early on. You know, we are the champions of Europe. We've got to go out. Everybody's going to be watching us. They're going to be paying even more attention to us than they were this time last year after coming off the back of the final loss in Kiev. So for us, we've got to go out. It's a tough place to go, but I think it helps us that this is probably our toughest fixture in the group, and we're getting out of the way first.
Yeah, I mean that's it. It kind of goes both ways, doesn't it? In that regard, Jack, is that it gives you an opportunity to really put a marker down, to really set yourself up in the group, but equally it'd be nice to warm into Champions League football a bit before having your hardest game. And the most important thing though is that lessons have been learned from last season, because away from home, whether it was mentality wise or fitness wise, squad rotation, tactically, whatever, we lost all 3 away games in the group last year. Yes, we get out, but I think given a lot of the stuff we've talked about, how many games this side have played, you know, what we're trying to achieve domestically, it is important. It's very, very important that we give ourselves the opportunity to, look, if we're going to rest and rotate, having a Champions League game to spare would be very, very useful.
I mean, when we did the video, Chris, just after the Champions League draw, I said that the main thing for me in this group is salvaging what happened last year, where we went to Napoli, played our worst game of the season. Klopp often says that actually, when it came to defending last season, he said, don't defend like we did against Napoli. And it's one of them where I would love us to just go out and absolutely smash them, but you have to put in the factor as well. Of course, we've just come back from an international break. We've got Chelsea on Sunday. So I think there will be rotation and lots of it, but I do hope we go there and smash them and come away with a big 3 points at the start of the Champions League.
I'd like to hope that there isn't rotation in this game. I think, you know,
Compared to the weekend though,
I think I'd like to see if you could say there's a first 11, the first 11 goes out there. I think, you know, it is our toughest game in the Champions League, and as such, I think the points are needed from this one more than anything else. I think 3 points here and it sets you up, and you almost can't be caught.
Yeah.
And you send a message to your group that they've already played Napoli away. They're going to just be flying at this point. And maybe it opens up the room to rotate a little bit more in some of the other games, where I think you can probably take your foot off the gas a little bit more in the other games, like Genk and Salzburg. I'm okay with rotating there. Napoli are a top draw side, and as such, I think they deserve the respect. I think, you know, we play late on Sunday. It's a Tuesday game. The issue is the Saturday to the Tuesday. It's not the Tuesday to Chelsea. Yeah. I don't think that's an issue for our lads.
Yeah, we've set up for that. We've done the rotation, haven't we? You know, from the weekend. The only rotation we've seen, we're probably going to see things fixed up, and obviously that will depend on injuries, which we'll talk about in a moment, of course. But this is the period of the season, Ben, where we've struggled historically. You know, because you think about the Europa League stuff, it was always the Thursday to Sunday stuff, that kind of thing. Handling 2 difficult games a week is a very difficult thing to do, and this is where, wasn't this exact point last season, but we had Napoli, Chelsea back to back in the, you know, last season, and we had a little run of draws and defeats, and that kind of took the wind from our sails a little bit. Look, we lost 1 game in the league all season, of course, but this is where anything we know about this side so far this season, you can kind of put to one side. That was the first part of the season. This is the real business. This is the meat.
Yeah,
this
definitely.
is the meat and drink of the season.
But I mean, I'm more encouraged. I mean, obviously, last season was an incredible success. But if you think about the way we actually started last season, there was a little bit of disjointedness about it. You know, I remember us playing Brighton at home and it wasn't quite working yet. You know, we won 1-0, but we kind of got through it. You know, and this game this time last year did sum it up in the sense of, you know, we were so poor there. This season we've clicked pretty much instantly, and we're playing really exciting, you know, breathtaking football at times. And I think that will, you know, the momentum that we've built up so far this season, combined with the fact that, you know, the likes of Jordan Henderson was rested at the weekend. You know, you've got the likes of Milner who can come back in and do a job. You know, we've got lots of options to come in, and they will carry us forward. And I think we will put in a much better performance tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
The one thing we have to be worried about, I think, or at least concerned about, is that Napoli will feel like they should have got through in the group. You know, that big save from Alisson towards the end of the Champions League group stage game at Anfield, and the way that they beat us, they'll be out for baying for our blood, because they'll think that we stole their place in the finals of the Champions League, as it were. So I think we do need to be a little bit concerned about that. But ultimately, the way that we're playing right now, I said that on the final word, Joe. I don't look at a game and think Liverpool aren't going to win it anymore. The draws don't even come into my head anymore.
No,
I'm looking at it going, we might win the quadruple and win every game this season.
No, honestly, I had this thing when I was thinking about these shows and going through the season, and that's why I think the conversation about the 2 games a week is so important, and for us not to get too far ahead of ourselves, because I'm dead right with you. I'm kind of thinking, there's almost no point in, like, these shows are like, Liverpool are really good. If they play to the best of their ability, they'll probably win the game coming up, because they're so good at footy. Now, if your opponent plays really well and they get a bit of luck, etc., they might win, because that's football. There you go. That's your show, everyone. We'll see you all back here for the reaction when we talk about
how good Liverpool were.
Exactly, like, and how good the front three is, and how well this slightly less culture, but ultimately brilliantly working midfield helps us, etc. So no, it is important that we
Can I just do a bit of the match reaction then? Wasn't it amazing against Napoli how it wasn't Mane and Firmino, but it was Salah this week who stood up and scored the goals?
Yeah, that's it. One thing about Napoli which could actually play into our favour. Obviously, we saw in pre-season, Jack, they just wiped the floor with us. We were dreadful. It was probably the worst performance in pre-season in the game in Edinburgh. It's almost flipped now, because they were a bit more relaxed in terms of their build-up. Liverpool were throwing games together, you know, in pre-season, just to try and get some semblance of fitness, still without all the best players available to us at the time. We're now comfortably into the season, you know, 5 games in the league under the way, and the 2, the Charity Shield and the Super Cup as well. Napoli have only played 3 games so far, because the Italian league starts a little bit later. They've conceded 7 goals so far, albeit 4 of them to Juventus in game week 2. So we should be. I think the timing of this game suits us quite well.
Yeah, I do think. I mean, I watched that Juventus game, and obviously Juventus are a very, very good side, but there were issues for Napoli defensively. But obviously they have Koulibaly, who is one of the greatest centre-backs in the world right now. And I think if you look at that game last season when we played Napoli away from home, Koulibaly was everywhere. He's not just
left wing.
Yeah,
he was left wing.
That's the thing.
Bombing down.
He's incredible.
Yeah, I love him.
And it's one of them where he literally is all over the pitch, and we're constantly, as you say, we're constantly bigging up our front 3 at the minute, and this will be a tough game for them. It really will be a tough game for them. And you've put on here, it would have been nice to have a fresh Firmino, because it would have been, because you've got him coming in fresh, ready to go against a very good centre back, and you know, with his dropping in deep, and it's whether Koulibaly is on top form too.
I don't think he's arsed at the moment, Firmino. I think he's
No,
just going to go out
agree.
and carry on doing what he's doing. I don't think tiredness even enters his brain.
I think
he's
the
just
game
happy
plan.
with what he's doing.
I think when we talk about it though, is we have to talk about these games side by side, and you have to talk about Chelsea is in the thinking, and that's the problem where the rotation is just slightly undone by the fact that Firmino would have come on. He'd have absolutely come on against Newcastle. He'd probably had half an hour just to keep him ticking over. But you know, it's a fine balance, isn't it? The sports science that we'll never be truly privy to, but there's a reason why we chose that game, you know, to put a bit of freshness back in his legs. So you're right, it's early in the season. I mean, because it shouldn't matter, but that was clearly the game plan. So it's something that's gone against our plan.
Yeah,
for
I
this
think
game.
when Klopp was speaking after the game, he said one of the reasons it was always in the plan to get Firmino on the bench for that game. It wasn't because they felt that he couldn't play. It was just because they actually didn't really know how he'd be.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have any time with him. He came back on the Thursday, didn't he, before the game? So they had a little bit of time with him on the Friday. They hadn't assessed him really. But Klopp did say, I knew he was ready.
Yeah.
I had no issues with bringing him on with 30 minutes gone and 60 to play, sorry. So I think Firmino's one of them lads that he will want to play in every single game. He looks better for playing in every single game. And he'll have been happy that he came on after 30 minutes.
God,
He'll have been gutted for Divock. But he'll have been made up. And he'll be there knocking on the door going, don't even fucking think about resting me for this one. Because I've got some other skills that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah. I'm gonna do a chip through with my left foot now just for a laugh.
It might benefit us a little bit more that he actually got an hour, because he might have come on for half an hour.
But
it's difficult to get into the game, especially if you're being comfortable. You know, if you're winning the game and you come on with half an hour to go. But actually, he came on, played an hour, and changed the game.
But it's not.
As well as
And now everyone's talking about him though as well. I mean, he's got to love that.
True, but it's not that. It's the Chelsea game that's the issue. Of course, he can play this game. You know, it's the if you're then asking all three again to go big for in the weekend.
He's not going to play MK Dons, so then you go. The benefits there, you know. So
absolutely, but you know, when we talk about those fine margins, when you're playing two big teams in a week, that extra 1%, 2%, 5%. That's the last 20 minutes of that Chelsea game. That's where those little percentage differences are. Look, ultimately, we're talking about a brilliant Liverpool side who will undoubtedly be are as capable of coping as any Liverpool side I've ever seen. Yeah. But if we have to find something that might, you know, just to give us something to talk about, lads, just to give us something to talk about that isn't Liverpool or boss. Let's move on.
Look, the one thing I would say is, like, if we're gonna think about that Chelsea game as well. The lads that are in form for Chelsea have not done this before. Your Mounts, your Abrahams, the centre-half who scored the screamer. They've not done 3 games in a week before. Now, admittedly, they're playing at home to Valencia and at home to us. Yeah. But this is new territory for them. Our lads have been there and done it. You know, so I'm not as worried about it as maybe some people would be.
Some slight concerns fitness-wise for Liverpool ahead of this game. Robertson didn't train on Monday. Klopp said after the game that he had a knock. He said Mane had a knock, but both said he did say they were both okay, so you imagine it's probably just a precautionary thing with Robertson.
Mane was looking at his stuff before half-time, was bending over and stretching himself out and stuff, so it doesn't surprise me. The Robbo one does. Gomez or Milner, sounds.
Yeah, that's it. And obviously we know Divock was going for a scan at the time of film. We don't know where he's at with that. But one of the things that I was thinking about the Origi thing is that, and we talked very briefly on the Final Word show about Shaqiri being a bit unlucky in terms of like the amount of players who
very briefly.
Yeah, but the amount of players who have under Jurgen Klopp, normally if you're there at Melwood throughout an international break, you're almost certain to start the next game. These things happen in seasons where you get opportunities, and you could be that. Like, I don't think Shaqiri's going to start this game, but if it just gives him a one-game opportunity to jump above the pecking order, if Origi's out, or you know, we've not seen anything really of Brewster. You know, he was hyped up so much in pre-season. These could be the situations where Shaqiri and Brewster will be looking at it and go, okay, cool. It means that one of them is more likely to get minutes on the pitch off the back of it. There's an exciting thing there, if nothing else. But
Shaqiri's lucky as well because he's dead small, so he could probably train in the aisle of the plane over onto Napoli, whereas everyone else is missing sessions.
He could train in the cockpit, couldn't he? Yeah, you could take him in hand luggage and he could train in there, to be fair. We're going to talk a little bit about then what we think the 11's likely to be in a moment. Before we do, Chris sat down with Athletic journalist Simon Hughes this week, and he talked about, this was the greatest Liverpool side of all time?
This was pre-Newcastle.
Yeah.
He nailed it really, didn't he?
Absolutely, so take a look at this.
If you look at what he did last season, you know, to say he's used to the one area of the season which he hasn't got right consistently over the last few years has been the winter or January.
January. There was a bad February one
January,
time.
Yeah. He's still, it's where the season, if they've fallen short, that's where they've fallen short. It was definitely the case. I think you can point towards that period last season where they obviously lost to City, drew with Leicester and then drew with West Ham. But, you know, this stage of the season, he seems to be pretty good at now. Last season, you know, I know they lost couple of games against Napoli and in the League Cup, didn't they? And then drew with Chelsea. But he seems to keep a regularly settled team in this period. It tends to be December where he starts chopping and changing it a bit, ahead of the Christmas period. So if his past sort of selection process is anything to go by, I'd imagine it's going to be pretty similar. Of course, last season it seems a bit different to this season in the sense that the forward line are a lot more functioning at this moment in time. Last season they struggled to click, I think, after the World Cup, and all seemed a bit tired. But
we were playing a different formation then as well.
Yeah.
We were playing a lot of the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-2-2-2, whatever you want to say. We were playing it now. We just seem to have continued with what we were doing at the back end of last season. It does seem to be working for us.
That's available in video form and in podcast form as well on the redmentv.com. You'll have seen the first part was out on YouTube this week. That continued into the second part. Very, very good and insightful stuff from the wonderful site Hugh. So get over to the website, sign up. It's free for the first month, so you get that for absolutely nothing, as well as a whole host of excellent content, including the Reds News Roundup show, the Around the League podcast, and the Man of the Match podcast as well. Yes, let's talk about this game then. Let's work on the presumption. Let's just say Andy Robertson's a slight doubt. I think he's always one of those players, Chris, where he'll run through brick walls. If he's capable of getting to his feet, he'll want to be on the pitch. James Milner, I mean, to be fair, he's not played a lot of football.
2 years ago, he played left back and got the most assists in the Champions League, didn't he? I fancy a little bit of that. Because you mentioned just earlier, Paul. Well, if you're at Melwood, then you do normally in an international break get the game after. And I thought Milner would have got that game against Newcastle. So with him not getting that, I was already thinking and ahhing whether he'd get a game against Napoli.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd probably be in centre mid. But if Robbo's injured, I think left back.
I mean, we saw it against Barcelona, didn't we? At Anfield, Ben comes on the pitch. He's not left-footed, so you're always going to have that. But there's a guy, tons of experience. He's great, particularly if you're going to push on. It depends what we're looking for from this game, because there's a case to play Joe Gomez at right back in this one. We've seen that historically in games with teams that are going to cause us problems to go with a slightly more defensive Joe Gomez sort of way in the new camp. There's definitely some changes that are going to happen. I think there's a base logic that you would probably have just brought Henderson in for Oxlade-Chamberlain and just brought Firmino back into the starting lineup, and I think most of us would have been happy, but there could be one or two others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's difficult because you don't want it. It's not dropping, but you don't want to take anybody out the side, because I considered Gomez for Matip, but then at the same time, like, well, why would I take Matip out the side at the moment? He's a top player. Yeah. He's not doing a particularly intense job. He's not going to be fatigued. Yeah. So you might as well keep him in. And I suppose then that does free him up, because it does free Joe Gomez up to play right back, because you're looking ahead at Chelsea and you're going, well, you're going to want Trent for Chelsea, because going forward they're leaking goals. There's opportunities there for us to cause them a lot of problems with our fullbacks. Mm-hmm. So you target them games, and we did this a lot last season, where you're almost targeting games in pairs, and you're trying to piece together bits of jigsaws to try and figure out who's going to play where. I've got Milner in midfield. Okay, and I've got Fabinho in, because I think he's the first name on the team sheet at the moment, and then I've got Henderson in as well. That's my midfield three. I've got Robertson to start, because it's my preferred 11 and I'd like him to, and then I've got Matip and Van Dijk at the back and front three.
What's quite interesting about the midfield is that we actually bring Fabinho into the game, because Keita gets injured away last season. The midfield that we end up with is Fabinho, Henderson, Wijnaldum, Milner comes on a bit later on. We could actually start with that, and it feeds into this notion, Chris, we talked about this a lot at the back end of last season, that we didn't really see Fabinho. We forget that Fabinho's only really now just established in the team. That could be one of those fundamental differences. The criticism was so heavy of our midfield in away games in Europe last season, whereas this will be a decent test of that.
Yeah, I think, I can't believe we never actually really spoke about Fabinho on the final word show, because for me it was so close between him and Firmino for man of the match. I just think that, I don't know what it is about him, but certainly when we're attacking, he just sort of stands 15 yards behind the D, and teams just can't seem to get out, and it's just like, it's a constant cycle of us attack, they kick it clear, Fabinho gets it, and we start again, and he's just, I think he's one of my favourite midfielders we've ever had. Like I would put him up very close to Steven Gerrard levels at the way I really think he's that good. I think he's unbelievable. Like I think he's well better than Mascherano. I think he's better than Xabi Alonso was for us. I just think he's truly crucial to everything that we're doing at the moment, and as such he's first name on the team sheet almost every week.
And there's our all engagement in the comment section sorted as well for the week. Thanks for that, Chris.
I did say almost up there with Steven Gerrard, didn't I? I'm just for the record, I said almost if they just blanked over.
It's the Xabi Alonso fanboys you want to watch out for, mate.
Stand by it.
It's and anyone got anything radical or interesting they're going to do with this, Jack?
I just play a team of bobbies at the minute with the form he's on. I just play him in every position. Stick Milner in goal as well to give him a game. And there you go.
Let's work on the assumption then. Let's just say if Robertson's going to, if he's fit, he'll start. But if he's out,
where did he pick up? Did he pick up an injury at the weekend?
Yeah, just a knock during the game.
Right, okay. I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Milner at left back. Anyone going Gomez right back, Jack?
I went with Gomez at right back.
Okay.
I went with the team you'd expect really. So Adrian, Robbo, VVD, Matip, Gomez, Fabinho, Henderson, Milner, and then the front three. I think. But if Robbo is injured, I would rather Milner play left back. I think Gomez is going to have times this season where he's going to play at right back, and playing him in too many positions can be a problem, I think. So, and as Chris said, Milner was superb this season where we lost in Kiev. And do you know, I would trust him 100% to slot in at left back and do the job.
Yeah, I mean, if we have to play Milner left back, do you make Trent go one more and continue at right back just to make sure that we're not losing too much of because they're so essential to how we play?
I think you do. I think it's one of Robertson or Trent off the field at a time. It's never both.
That's why I went with Robbo on here, because I do not think that if Robbo is injured, that Gomez will start at right back. I think you can't do that. You can't mess with both full-backs. I think you'd have to pick one or the other.
Okay. Cool. Nothing else radical at all?
No.
No, I agree. And that for me, having Henderson's just going to come back into this. But great that we got an opportunity to give him a game off, which is brilliant. Give him a lot of get him fired up as well by just getting mercilessly booed by the Newcastle fans every time he warms up, made up. And,
his energy is going to be key here, because this is going to be a physical game. This, Napoli come and they like to chop your legs off a little bit, and he likes a good tackle, Jordan Henderson, and I think that will have been the thinking. It's going to be a very hard working midfield, and I think that's why I put Milner in as well, because just for the experience in there and doing the basics right, because that's what James Milner does very well, and he'll do it very well if he plays at left back. But just doing the most basic things correctly in a big European game is what you need.
There's a temptation, I think, with Wijnaldum. I think Klopp loves him, and I know he plays pretty much every minute he's available to play, doesn't he? But there is that thing of Milner's there. If we don't need him at left back, I don't mind us making. I think Milner's. Well, you don't see a significant drop off for having James Milner in there. So there's players you can rotate that don't really have a negative impact in anything that you do, and Milner's one of them. So if we're able to use him in midfield, I would rather Wijnaldum play. I'd have Wijnaldum play every game, because I think he's brilliant. But that's just a good chance to give Gini a game off without it having a negative impact on what you're doing. And I don't think I don't think you can really do that to the front three. I don't think you can do that particularly in a big game anymore in the 6. So Fabinho has to start, and so it's a good chance for Milner for me anyway. And I don't know. My only concern with the Gomez at right back thing is we saw it in the Super Cup, Chris. We just weren't as balanced. We just weren't as good for having Joe Gomez in at right back, because as much as he's a pretty good right back, he would start right back for the vast majority of teams in Europe, I think, but Trent is so good that we're reaching that point now where what game do you not need someone who's got that ability?
And it's like, I agree with you. I think, I could sit here and talk about how Gomez isn't quite the player that Trent is going forward. Everybody knows this already, don't they? But for me, one of the big things that I noticed after the Newcastle game, and why I think our fullbacks are so important, is when we take corners, it's Trent and Robbo who are the two lads that are on the edge of our half, isn't it? You know, they're the last line of defence. And the ball so often goes to them after the team clears. And all of a sudden, you've almost got two centre midfielders pinging the ball back to a left winger or a right winger. And Liverpool start again. And I think even if you just put Joe Gomez there, in that one situation of the game, he doesn't do what they do. We don't get on the front foot quite as quickly. It might go back to the goalkeeper before it comes back out to a centre half. Do you know what I mean? And so there's, yes, Trent's better than Gomez going forwards, but he's also better in other situations. You lose the threat from corners. We've been so good at corners this season so far. We've scored goals already. Yeah. There's just so many things that you lose for taking Trent out. Admittedly, Gomez can take a free kick. I've it now as well. Like.
Apparently so. It depends on our mentality, doesn't it? I think if we're going there to play our natural game, Trent is our natural game. But if we're thinking, let's go and do a vintage away, don't use up too much energy. Yeah, if we're happy with if we're happy to go there and frustrate them and nick a goal, play on the counter or whatever, then Gomez is probably fine in that situation because you're keeping the door shut at the other end. But the better you become, the more and more you start to think of, like I say, it's a brave man who takes Trent out the side now because of just how good he is going the other way. Let's briefly look at the other fixtures then. Chelsea, as mentioned, Chelsea-Valencia is also on Tuesday. Olympiacos host Spurs on the Wednesday, and City travel to Shakhtar all the way to the Ukraine. Ooh. Yeah, and in their private, comfortable jets, probably.
Who's City got at the weekend?
Watford.
At home.
Yeah, no man.
Brighton at home again, sounds.
Yeah, I guess that is what it is. Let's have your score predictions for this then. Jack, what do you think?
I'm going with 3-1.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we'll be up for giving them revenge for pre-season, for last season. I think we're just rampant at the minute, and it's just, as Ben said in the final word, I just think I can't see a game where we don't score over 2 goals, even with one of the best centre-backs in the world at the back for Napoli. It's like, I just can't see it.
Well, I'm going to go 1-0. So completely against what I said in the final word. I think it's going to be tight. I think I don't know whether it's just me perception of how it went last year. I think it's going to be a similar game. I don't think it's going to be a vintage Liverpool performance, but I do have confidence in us turning it around and actually getting a good result out of what might be a mediocre performance and nicking a win.
I think a win's a win in this situation. Yeah. So you think but you did say snotted right at the top.
I'm going to go a 3-0 away win.
Wow.
And listen, I know Napoli are a good side, and I really do think Napoli are a really, really good side. And I know I talked earlier about how, Napoli will want revenge for us. I think our lads want revenge for the performance that we put in out there. And I think we just go there and just showcase our class. And literally, my big thing after this round of games is everyone's talking about how can you stop Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I think the champions going out, first game, away from home, and their toughest away in the group, and snotting aside, and all of a sudden everyone's like, fuck, they're going to do it again.
Sounds lovely. I like the story. We might as well just predict Liverpool wins. Said this before, but no,
and we did it when we were shit.
No, exactly. But I did this for all 3 away games last season. I was like, we're this good, and we got to the final last season. We need to prove we're going to do the blah 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 blah. And we beat PSG in the opening game, so we can do the. And then we were just teared in all the away games. I think it will be a much tighter thing, and it doesn't matter how Liverpool win this game really. Inevitably, you're right. If we put 3 goals on the board, it sends a massive message to everyone. But what really is the most important thing is, I think, getting out of this with a minimal fuss. Without having to go flat out, without having to throw subs at things to try and make things happen. If we can go and get a nice tight defensive, keep a clean sheet, and nick a goal, for me. It's not going to be. I want to forget about this game. I want us to not talk about these group games. I want them to be stock standard wins, exactly to the best of our ability. I think it might be a close one. It might be 1-0 or 2-1 to Liverpool. Let us know your score predictions though in the comments section underneath, or tweet us at the Redmen TV as well. Yeah, if you want more great content from us, make sure you head over to the redmentv.com. The aforementioned Cy Hughes interview is on there, and a whole host of other brilliant things as well. So yeah, it's completely free. Go and try it out and see how you get on with it. Other than that, gentlemen, thank you. It's been a pleasure. The Champions of Europe back in action on Tuesday. What a time to be alive. What a time to be a Red. Enjoy the game, and we'll be back post-match.